Welcome to the Union Philosophical Society. My name is Sam Rosemary, and I am the president of the Union Philosophical Society. It's quite a big crowd, and it's quite a treat to have such a big debate and have such a big forum on such an important issue. I'd like to thank three people. Well, first, all the members of our society who helped organize this. Have a quick round. Main organizer. I'd also like to thank Ms. Soda and Mr. Liska and the respective parties and clubs for coming to debate and also for dealing with the case and our benefit from the staff, which has not served us as well as I hoped. But a little bit about our society while people are still filing in. We were founded in 1789. We're the sixth oldest society in America. The sixth being Bellet, which is our rapidly declining literary society. I don't know, some of you might be in this room for the first time. It's the Union Philosophical Society's room. You can see our banner and white rose over on the wall. In better light, you can see our mural, or stained glass window behind us with our motto, Sapientia Omnibus Vicet, which means wisdom stands before all. We have an independent charter, so if Dickinson ever leaves us, we can still exist. And we welcome all of you to come back for future meetings. You'll see our meetings posted around campus with many topics, serious, not so serious. And if you come to 3 consecutive meetings, you get a fancy pin and get to become a peer. So that said, I'm going to explain the format for tonight's debate. Over there are the college Democrats, and to my right are the college Republicans. The format's going to be AB, which means one speaker is going to, from each side is going to speak. So one, then the other, and then back, and then forth. There's going to be a coin toss to decide who goes first. And after each speaker speaks for 6 minutes, we're going to open up the floor to questions, comments, outrage, whatever the audience wants, and I will be moderating from there. So if I could ask Ms. Soda and Mr. Lister to come. Oh, before that happens, I'd like to turn it over to our critic, who's going to explain a couple of things.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rachel Warren. I am Madam Critic, and that means that I am here to ensure decorum and respect. Now, tonight of all nights is an especially hot issue, and people tend to get very worked up about it. Our tradition in this society is when we know each other's names, we refer to each other as Mr. and Ms. We give everybody time to finish their thought, and it will be up to Mr. President and Madam Vice President to call on you after the debate has closed and the floor is open before you may speak. So that means there will be no interruptions unless it comes from the executive table. There will be no cursing. There will be no booing. And please hold your applause until the end of the formal debate and before we open it up to the general body of peers. And if you like what you saw here tonight, please join us for our Halloween debate, which will be next Tuesday. And it would be, our question is, who will be the better motivational speaker, Laddie and Taylor, or Jack the Ripper? Thank you very much.
Oh, and instead of clapping, we generally pound the table like this. It keeps them low today. High mark. So, Mr. Lister, please approach to the. We have Goddess Minerva on one side, and we have Union Philosophical on the other side. Would you like to speak first?
Well, thank you all for coming here. This is really great. Excuse me, sorry.
It's extraordinary.
I thought so too. No, yes, as you said, this is extraordinary. that everyone showed up here. I mean, you know, on such short notice when Case was waffling with trying to get us all organized here, but this is great to see everybody showing up. Thank you. But this also further attests to kind of our interest as young people in this election. And I think, I mean, for better or for worse, Barack Obama has really given the young people of this country something to think about. He's really energized young people. I mean, and I think that's probably one of the reasons why the Obama-Biden ticket is better for young people to vote for. Because really, he's more like us than John McCain. I mean, you know, John McCain is 72 years old, if I'm correct. Barack Obama is 48. I mean, you know, that's a good deal younger. And I think Barack Obama shares a lot of the same values as we do when it comes to, let's say, young people's rights. Like, for example, the war. I think the war is a young person's right because most of the people who are dying are young people. And really, John McCain, he wants to keep this war going. And I really don't understand why. I don't understand how he could say young, you know, thousands of young people, including his own son and the son of his vice presidential candidate, Sarah Palin, to die for something that a lot of people don't think is really right. First, it was, you know, they've got weapons of mass destruction. Let's go get it. And after 9/11, we're like, yeah, let's do it. Let's go get something. Well, it didn't really turn out that way. When we found out that there weren't any, the mission kind of creeped over. And George Bush really muddled it up. And there's kind of a way to change this. I think John McCain could say, you know, well, let's change our facts. Let's make something different. Let's go to Afghanistan, or let's do something different. But no. He wants to stay in Iraq, and I think the quote was 100 years. It just doesn't work for me. And really, it's John McCain is a 20th century soldier, let's say, and he's trying to fight a 21st century war. And personally, I don't think he can do this. I think his experience in Vietnam, while it is honorable, I think it just doesn't. He's not connected enough with the youth of this country. He's not connected enough to the way times are changing. He's still fighting an old war, and you just can't do that. I mean, many of you may agree that war is bad. You know, if we were never to fight wars again, that would be excellent. But of course, if there's something worthy for fighting, I think we should do that. However, made up reasons and lies, rhetoric, it's not going to do it for us. I think Obama, Biden, if they're in power, and if we can get our troops home safely, that's the best way of supporting them. Yeah, time. I suppose another way that Obama-Biden is better is that Barack Obama chose his running mate, Joe Biden, on his own strengths and weaknesses. For example, Barack Obama knew that he needed someone to help reinforce his ticket. He needed someone who wasn't as young and idealistic as he was, but someone who kind of had wisdom and enough strength to back him up. John McCain took a gamble. John McCain said, well, there are a lot of disenchanted Hillary Clinton voters out there, and I think I might want to, touch on that by bringing a woman up. Well, we shouldn't vote for someone just because she's a woman. And we should vote for someone because of their strengths. And whether the fact that Sarah Palin is Sarah Palin, that's not a good reason. We have to start looking at exactly why he chose that. And I think it's because it's a pander. I think he wants all the Hillary Clinton people to say, oh, gee, a woman, yes. Well, I'm so disappointed that Hillary didn't get it, but I'll vote for her. It's not going to do it. I mean, you've seen the way she talks in debates. It's just not, they're not in touch. Neither of them are in touch with reality and with the youth of America and with everybody, with me. And when I watch it, I just get so frustrated. I get so frustrated seeing people being called un-American because they're liberal. Sarah Palin likes to visit the pro-American parts of America. Can you think of an anti-American part of America? I can't. No one is in touch in this ticket except for Obama, Biden. That ticket is going to take us into the future properly. We're going to stop wasteful spending, like the war, billions and billions of dollars, and it's going to bring us back to a well-respected view in our nation, in the international stage, rather. So, just in a brief conclusion, I think that, we're going to hear stuff about the economy, we're going to hear stuff about fiscal issues, social issues, but I think we all have to keep in mind of a big overarching issue, something that's going on every day. Not just something that says, oh, there's a court ruling about something. No, the war is going on every day. People are dying every day. I don't want to see any more people come home in flag-draped caskets, and I don't want to see any more mothers sobbing over those flag-draped caskets. I don't want it anymore. And I think with Obama, Biden, it's not going to happen. I think we can start healing the wounds that these past 5 years have caused. Thank you.
talk about
All right, I'd like to start out by thanking everyone for coming. This is a great showing. One of the questions that was posed to us is, why does this election matter for college students? And the biggest answer I could come up with is, especially in light of our current financial meltdown, we're standing on one of the most crucial turning points in the history of America. This financial meltdown has been compared to the Great Depression. We have a national debt. It's currently approaching $10 trillion, and that's only in funded liabilities. If you count unfunded liabilities for Medicare and Social Security, it could be up to $60 or $70 trillion. And as Mr. Liska said, we do still have a war in Iraq and Afghanistan, as well as troops in 135 different countries. So this election, after 8 years of the same president, is really, really important. And I think that when Barack Obama says we need change, he's absolutely right. But as Rudy Giuliani pointed out early in the primary season, change is not a good in as of itself. It can be a good thing or it can be a bad thing. And Mr. Liska, he alluded to past failures in Iraq, which John McCain would admit the war was mismanaged, and that's why he supported the surge. But what's really important now is how we approach the future and the different ideas of these two candidates. And I don't think it matters that John McCain is older and that Barack Obama is younger. You don't vote for someone because they're closer to you in age. What matters is what they're going to do, what their morals are, what their political ideals are. And so I think that what we really need to return to is the founding ideals of this country, and that's liberty and a limited government, a government designed to protect the security of its people and the liberty of its citizens. And we've really, tragically, I think, moved away from that in the past couple decades, especially the 20th century. And right now we have a government that is redistributing income by arbitrarily discriminating against the rich. We have a government that's intervening in our healthcare markets, our banking system, and basically everything else. And I'd like to say that I once was a liberal. I once was a Democrat. When I was younger in high school, my parents were both liberals, and as a result, I was too. And I understand the sort of pull of liberalism. I read Senator Obama's book, The Audacity of Hope, and I understand the will to think that the government can help. I think that was the big thesis point of that book. And I believed that once. Now I don't. Sadly, I really don't think it can. And we have to realize that there are consequences of even well-intentioned government interventionism, especially in our economy. One of the most pertinent examples, I think, is this current financial meltdown. I do not buy the argument that it was a lack of regulation that caused this. I think that what really caused this is excessive government. As you know, Fannie and Freddie Mac were government-sponsored entities, and their distortion of the marketplace is really what brought the whole subprime housing crisis to a close, popped the bubble. And the Federal Reserve, which is a government central bank, had an enormous role in this. So I don't think that we should blame this on the free market. And also, if you move to healthcare, the notion that our healthcare problems come from free market is really twisted. 45 cents of every dollar spent on healthcare in this country comes from government. And there's a lot of rules and regulations, the FDA, Medicare, and Medicaid, that have really distorted our market. This is government impacting and hindering a functioning free market. So the way we need to move forward, I think, is to realize the value of freedom and liberty, as our founding fathers intended us to do. We can either opt to increase the tragic trend of statism that has gripped our country and has really put us on our knees right now, or we can realize that freedom and liberty, both economically and politically, have worked, will work, and will continue to work. That's all I have.
All right, once again, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out here. It's really great to see a lot of people who want to get engaged and really involved in the process. This is fantastic. The question that was posed was, which ticket's better suited to lead the nation? And I think in these final months, we've gotten a taste of how these two tickets would govern while in office. And if you look at the recent financial crisis, the responses were clear and I think said a lot about how each of these two tickets would lead. John McCain pulled a stunt. He suspended his campaign and ran back to Washington to run around the halls while cameras chased him around while he was doing nothing. Fantastic. I don't want that, kind of quote-unquote leadership, in my president of the United States. Barack Obama, on the other hand, provided a cool and very very grounded presence. You know, he spoke out on all the issues and said where he stood very firmly, and also directed he spoke with his friends. He spoke with, for instance, Bernie, what's the guy's name from Massachusetts? The guy who wrote the bill. And as well as the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Ben Bernanke, Paulson, and he was very much involved in the process. Without this sort of, you know, silly sideshow that we saw from the McCain campaign, I think that says a lot about how these two candidates would lead. Barack Obama has a very strong bipartisan history. He's reached across the aisle. One memorable instance I can think of is working with Dick Lugar of Indiana to work to secure loose nukes, which is a huge threat to American national security. So I think that that is extremely commendable, and the example of the sort of thing that we'll see from an Obama-Biden administration. And I think this sort of action is what got Barack Obama the endorsement from Colin Powell recently. He specifically said that Obama is a great leader because he's a consensus builder. He's not an ideologue, he's a pragmatist. And he's somebody who's able to pull different people together, the important people together, sit down and build a consensus on a topic. I think it's very important if you look at the kinds of people that he surrounds himself with. I mean, you look, who's he hang out with? He hangs out with Warren Buffett, Paul Volcker, just to name a few, the CEO of Google. These are the types of people who are real leaders in our country and need to be sitting down when we're making decisions. And I think that sort of a very disappointing development is the McCain campaign's recent use of divisionary tactics, trying to strike fear. You know, Obama, you know, associated with terrorists. He's a socialist. You know, trying to drag up every single thing that Americans hate about groups that are bad and trying to attach it to Obama. And that's not the type of leadership that we need right now. We've had that kind of leadership for the past 8 years, the divide and conquer. And we don't need that anymore. We need a pro-America president. We don't need a you know, it's us versus them kind of president. We need somebody who's willing to bring all people together from all sides. And that's what Barack Obama will give you. Barack Obama and Joe Biden have put forward a plan. They haven't put forward these attacks like the McCain campaign. They put forward a specific plan. You know, on the economy specifically, the problem has been that wages have been stagnant and prices are rising. And it's caused a lot of hardship for a lot of families. So what they're going to do is they're going to cut taxes for 95% of working families. And that's families making under $250,000 a year. And these tax cuts will, and he'll also roll back the tax cuts for the wealthy, those making over $250,000 a year, back to Bill Clinton levels. You know, and this is responsible tax policy, especially when we have a lot of outstanding costs. The Bush administration has run up a lot of costs. You talk about limited government. That's not what we've been seeing the past 8 years. We've been seeing our national debt go through the roof. We've been seeing all sorts of spending, not in America, but overseas. 30 seconds, my gosh. All right. And these tax cuts are going to be really important because they're going to help the sort of entrepreneurship that drives America. And so in closing, you know, there are 100 reasons why you should vote for Barack Obama. Energy, ending the war responsibly, and we could probably get to those in the discussion. But yeah, there's definitely a very clear choice. There are very different plans, and we believe that Barack Obama and Joe Biden represent the correct one. Thank you.
We meet on Mondays at 6 in Hub Side Room 206. So even if you're not a Republican, you can come and challenge us on what we believe, or what we say to you guys. So I have a big speech prepared about all these issues and everything, and it was probably going to be about 45 minutes. So I'm probably going to cut that down a little bit just so it fits in the 6-minute range. Basically what I want to talk to you guys about here tonight is not stuff that you've heard on the commercials on TV. not the stuff that they've been shoving down your throats for 6 months, all these vagaries, all these things that aren't really telling you what you're going to be voting for. In this election, we've seen how keywords and phrases stir up emotion and get people excited. Hope, change, believe, yes. You know, it gets you excited. But those are powerful words, but they're only powerful if you have things behind them. And that's what I want you to look for here tonight is when people say something or they say an argument, you ask a follow-up question, ask, you know, well, what is the specific plan that your candidate has or something like that, because I'm tired of vagaries, I'm sure you are too, and I want to get you guys the best information that you can, and I want to learn something from you too. So I think we should all be specific here tonight and delve into the issues. I know John McCain and Sarah Palin have been using a keyword, maverick. I heard it on the SNL skit like 10 times. What does a maverick mean? It means a lone dissenter as an intellectual, an artist, or a politician who takes an independent stand apart from his or her associates. So when we hear maverick, is McCain really a maverick, or is he just this Mick Bush? McCain's another Bush. We don't want another 4 years of Bush. Is that what we're getting? Are we going to get 4 years of the same? Well, I have arguments here, and I'm not talking vagaries, I'm talking specific instances. McCain is not another Mick Bush, and we need to get that out of our mind. I know the commercials that you hear are completely truthful. You know, another 4 years of Bush is not going to happen. McCain got into office in 1987. That was under Reagan. He served under Reagan, Bush 41, Clinton, Bush 43. Throughout this time, he hasn't voted along party lines. He just doesn't agree with something because it's sponsored by a senator who has an R after their name. In '93, he voted against military operations in Somalia. Okay, so '93, we're starting out here. He's targeted pork barrel spending, which a lot of people think is kind of a Republican-sponsored issue. No, he attacks that. He supported the line item veto act of 1996, which would have given President Clinton, a Democrat, more power to control budget and to be more specific in his power. So he voted to give Clinton more power. In '98, he broke with fellow Republicans who challenged the tobacco industries. He wanted to implement higher taxes, which would hurt the tobacco industries, which a lot of people think, oh, we're friends with the Republicans. In 2001, when George Bush came into office, I don't know if you remember, but when McCain ran for president in 2000, and he didn't really like Bush at the time, he actually opposed a lot of Bush's initial policies, HMOs, initially the tax cuts, a lot of things that Bush proposed he was against. McCain co-wrote the McCain-Feingold Act, or the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act of 2002. And despite opposition from President Bush, it was passed. I'm not going to list a few more, but John McCain has worked with Senators Joe Lieberman, Ted Kennedy, who is a huge Democrat in Congress. He's worked side by side with him. And when we're talking reaching across the aisle, these are specific examples, and that's what I want you to ask for and prod for when people say, oh, they're bipartisan. McCain was named in 2006 one of America's 10 best senators, and a lot of that has to do with how he reached across the aisle. Now this is where I was going to talk about a lot of issue stuff, but I guess we'll leave that for the debate. I guess right now, I just want to talk a little bit about balance of power. So I've been Republican since I was about 5, and I voted for Bush in my kindergarten election. So I really embody Republican ideals. I'm gung-ho about almost everything our party believes, but as passionate as I am, I would not want to see the Republican Party dominating the legislative branch and the judicial branch and the executive branch. Our country is based on balance of power. It's based on checks and balances. Right now, if you guys aren't familiar, the Democrats are controlling the House. And after this election, because of all the anti-Bush and anti-Republican sentiments in our country, they're probably going to even increase their lead in the House. If we get a Democrat in office in the executive branch, there's going to be trouble. There's not going to be no checks on that. It's going to be completely Democrat. They're going to be able to pass leftist and extreme leftist bills. And if you're Democrat, maybe that's fine with you. But if you are even possibly independent, or if you're somewhere towards the middle, you have to think about that. Our country wasn't designed so that one party could be in control. That's why we have 3 branches, so we can have 3 checks, or 3 people to check the other branch. So you have to think about that if you're undecided. I guess lastly, I'd like to wrap up on a more personal note. We're all college students voting in our first presidential election, most of us. After we get out of college, we're going to be getting jobs, and we're going to be using that money that we make in jobs to pay off our Dickinson college debt, which is probably going to be over $100,000. Even with financial aid, I know I'm going to be in a lot of debt. John McCain has plans to create wealth for this country. He has plans to cut taxes, not only for citizens, but for corporations, so that they can offer more jobs for this country. If you want specifics, address me after my initial statement. Barack Obama has, and I quote him when he says this, he wants to redistribute the wealth. I'm not saying that's socialism, I'm saying that's different. Creating the wealth versus redistributing the wealth. John McCain wants everyone to improve their status. He doesn't want to take from the rich and give to the poor and just leave the status quo. He doesn't want to redistribute. He wants to create. So I want you to think about that when you leave Dickinson and you get good jobs because you spent 4 years at this college. Do you want to pay that money to the government taxes for them to redistribute, or do you want to use it to pay off your debt because you worked hard? Just think about that.
All right. I think we had a good introduction to the issues, and now the floor is open to anyone. Anyone in the back of the picture?
Hi, this is my first time listening. I just like to thank you
Please
guys.
stand.
Sorry.
Please stand and state your name.
My name is Alex Grant. This is my first time here. I just wanted to thank you guys for letting people who are new to this. I'm a liberal, but first I'd like to just get into more specifics with you. I forget your name the last girl who was up. I would like to give another perspective on the things that you said. One, with McCain kind of not being into Bush or another Bush, you listed a lot of specifics which I commend you on, but those all happen to be before Bush came in office, if I'm not mistaken. You can see McCain quoted as saying he voted 90% or more of the bills and decisions that Bush did. That would, to me, be like a McBush or whatever, supersized McBush, I don't know what you want to call him. Second of all, 1% of this nation's population controls over 20%. Is it? Yeah, around 20%, and then the bottom 50% have 50% of the population have about 13% of this nation's wealth. That's just not balanced at all. That, in fact, that's just a redistribution of power, which Bush has been doing. If you give tax cuts to people who are earning over $250,000, they don't need that money. If you give them a tax cut, they're going to get a big fat check, and they might buy a yacht or a house in Tuscany or whatever. And somebody's getting a little check back in the mail who's earning 35 or 40. They're going to get $400, $500. They can buy a DVD player. That's not the rich people. That's not legit. That's not helping us. That's not investing money in our economy to go buy other more expensive things. Also, sorry to keep ranting, but
We're trying to look at the responses to about a minute and a half.
Okay, all right.
You just
yeah. And also with Palin, if anyone here in this room can look me or anyone else in this entire planet in the eye and say Sarah Palin would be willing to be president if McCain, who's 72 years old, has been in a prison camp for 5 years, he's old, he's raggedy. If you're telling me she's willing to leave, then you need to get CAT scanned. Use the money that Barack Obama is trying to give you for health care. Use that money to good and get your stuff.
Courtesy, we're going to try to keep it to a minute 30 or so. When I bang my gavel, that means your time's up. So finish your sentence, and that's how we do it.
Sorry, ditch it.
My name's Austin Quantum. I'm also a liberal, so sorry if I'm attacking you again. You mentioned the need for, you also first mentioned as one of the issues the fact that we have a large national debt and a need for balance right now in our government. However, something that I'd like to recognize is that since 1955, the two presidents that gained us our national debt were both Republicans, Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush. And since 1978, the balance that you're speaking of has nearly 70% of the time been controlled by the Republicans, who have been the leading representatives of both the House and the Senate. So this need for a balance doesn't really exist over the past 30 years. And I want to know how you can say the liberal policies are going to lead us to even more debt when we saw a decrease during the Clinton years, but an increase during Reagan and Bush, while they were being led by both a Republican House and a Republican Senate, along with their presidencies.
I'll let Andrew take this, but out of the 4 people, VP and presidential candidates, only one has executive experience and only one has ever balanced their own budget, and that one person is Sarah Palin. But now I'm going to let Andrew take that question about balancing a budget.
Yeah, I'd like to respond to it. Was it Alex?
Yeah.
Okay. I understand that a lot of people don't really like the admittedly uneven distribution of wealth in this country. The very wealthy do have a large percentage of the income, but they also shoulder the vast burden of the taxes. And I mean, you said that they don't need that money. And my question to you and to anyone else who believes that is, what right do you, or anyone in the federal government for that matter, have to decide who needs what amount of money? Those people didn't steal that money, and they didn't coerce it from anyone. They either, maybe they inherited it from their parents, but they earned that through a free market. They didn't steal anyone's money to get that. They earned that freely and fairly. And also, I want to go into a little more utilitarian value of having an unequal distribution of wealth. It's very politically convenient, especially for Democrats, to sort of attack the rich, but especially in regards to this current crisis. I don't know if anyone's been reading the newspapers, but they call it either a credit crunch or a credit freeze, right? And credit comes from savings, from people who underconsume or save more money than they spend, right? Now, the people who do that most are going to be the rich. Contrary to what you said, they're not always going to go out there and buy yachts. The rich invest a very, very large proportion of the money that they earn. So if you want this credit crunch or credit freeze to go away, the best way to do that is to start implementing a tax policy that rewards savings, that rewards underconsumption. And right now, I think very unfortunately so, our economy is built on consumer debt and consumer spending. We use credit card bills, and we actually have a negative national savings rate, meaning we borrow to finance consumption, not investment. And unfortunately, redistributing the wealth, it may make people better off on relative terms, it may level the playing field, but it's really going to hinder progress, and it's not going to raise the standard of living of society as a whole. And the way that you do that, as I wrote in one of my earliest Dickinsonian articles, I'm not sure if anyone read it, is by fostering saving and investment, and the rich are the ones that do that.
Is there a chance for a rebuttal?
We're going to try to keep, after we get a couple more, maybe we'll have a chance. Lee, do you want to?
Hi, my name is Lee Tankel. First of all, I agree with what Emily said, that we do need to be talking about issues, and I will get to that, but I have a few points that I'd like to make myself, first, that I've observed over the summer and since coming back to school. Whenever John McCain refers to his campaign or talks about his campaign, there's a few words that come to his mind, to my mind and most people's minds. One of those words is honor. I have a tremendous amount of respect for John McCain and his military service and his service as a United States Senator. But for a supposedly honorable man, John McCain has been running one of the dirtiest and dishonorable campaigns in American history. Whether he's implying that his opponent is solely responsible for high oil prices, supports kindergartners having sex, or is best friends with a terrorist, McCain employs dishonorable tactics. Until recently, Senator McCain and his running mate have even allowed supporters at rallies to call for the death or lynching of Senator Obama. The term country first is also affiliated with John McCain. John McCain doesn't put country first. John McCain has put John McCain first his entire career, and if you truly look at his record, you will see that. While he has supported so-called maverick policies in the past, in order to secure his party's nomination, he has compromised many of those core policies that made him who he was over the past 2 years. He was involved in one of the largest United States Senate scandals in history, for which he took political contributions in exchange for political favors. I have to finish up? Okay. In conclusion, I have good things to say about Barack Obama, but Barack Obama brings a new voice to this nation and has specific policies that can be good. So, sorry.
Wait, sorry. Sorry.
That's okay. I really would like to get it back to a discussion on the issues. Austin touched on how Republicans in the past have contributed to the national debt, and he's right. However, we're talking about the future here, all right? I was on Barack Obama's website today, okay?
he wants to eliminate the tax cuts for the wealthy. That's good. All right, that money he wants to funnel into a new healthcare. That's great. All right, he also wants to increase our Army by 65,000. He wants to increase the Marines by 27,000. I'm going into the Army. I recognize the need. However, he doesn't account for where he's going to pay for it. He wants to increase AmeriCorps from 75,000 to 250,000. Again, he doesn't account for where he's going to get the money. All right, our nation operates at a deficit. At the moment, in the last 8 years, even back in the Clinton years, we got to a point at the end of the Clinton years where we were able to balance the budget. However, that was with the cutting of social programs, not with the addition of them. Now, Obama has put many good ideas forward. He has. So has the McCain campaign. However, the thing that I have asked myself when I look to who I'm going to vote for is justification behind the ideas. They say that presidential candidates will fulfill 12% of what they promised during the campaign. I mean, both candidates, what 12% is Obama going to fulfill, what 12% is McCain going to fulfill?
In response to, you guys have raised a lot of points. So real quickly, how to pay for these things? You want me to stand up?
That's all right. Yeah, just because.
I mean, we're spending an exorbitant amount of money over in Iraq, so that's one area of spending that we can cut. But I want to address something that you brought up. I'm sorry, I forget your name.
Chris.
No, the other blue shirt. What? Andrew. Something that we're supposed to do this, Mr. Schumann brought up. Okay. That somehow paying taxes is punishment. And that's not how we view it. It's a reinvestment in America. It's a reinvestment in the free market that has, in the country, that has provided you the opportunity to gain wealth. And when we are faced with a fiscal problem, to the extent that we are, families who make more than $250,000, corporations, it's prudent to reinvest in your country, and it's patriotic. And I know that Sarah Palin lambasted Joe Biden for saying that. How could you say that paying taxes is patriotic? Well, maybe we should reconsider that. Maybe we should reconsider that attack. It's social responsibility.
My name is Trevor McCarthy, and I am a raging moderate. If possible, I would like to pose one question to each of the parties. Can I do that? Okay. Mr. Stewart, I believe? You brought up Colin Powell's recent endorsement of Senator Obama. I just have to ask, why exactly do such endorsements matter? Why should we be basing our decisions on who we're going to vote for, nay, even letting these endorsements influence why it is that we should vote for a certain candidate? Mr. Schumann?
Yes.
Love your columns in the Dickinsonian. I thought that the argument that you presented at the start of this debate was very well said. Can you please put it into terms that an average voter like myself could understand?
If you guys would agree to sort of stick to that, these questions posed up, I'd like to turn it over to each of you.
I have to answer Mr. Stewart's claim that somehow paying taxes to a coercive government is patriotic. So that is the surest way to legitimize statism and a high central power, which is basically dictating to the citizens who pays more taxes, who pays when, and to somehow insinuate that the rich paying more taxes is a reinvestment in the free market is really backwards, because that's an abrogation of the free market, is it not? Charging 35% tax rates on the richest Americans because we think that they need to be paying more taxes. I stand by the morals of it and saying, what right does one group of people with coercive final authority, that's the government, have to say to another group of people who are American citizens that we're going to take 35% of your income, but we're only going to take, say, 10% of someone else's. I think that's wrong from a sort of moral perspective. And to answer the question is, can I put this in more the federal government be telling us, you know, what we can and cannot do, who gets to keep what percentage of their income, and then if they increase the taxes, they're the ones deciding where that money goes. So the government is the one doing investment projects. And the real question is, I think I brought up freedom and liberty versus statism, and that's the real essence of it, is do you want a very small group of people with the president and 425 members of Congress controlling the economy, or do you want individuals?
Do you want me to just answer the question like we were supposed to?
I encourage you.
Okay. Yeah. My response to you is I think that every person is an independent voter and should make their own decision. You know, these endorsements, I personally don't put a lot of stock in them because I know who I was going to vote for before. But I think it's important to see what other people are saying. It's a part of the dialogue. So, I mean, when it comes to you making your decision, you know, obviously you have to look at the candidates and what they stand for and what you would like to see. You know, I don't necessarily think that one person should tell another person how to vote. But it is important as part of our dialogue. And do you want to follow up on that real quick?
May I? Just a quick question. The reason why endorsements, especially Colin Powell's, matters is because you have to look at who the people are who are endorsing each candidate. Colin Powell is a Republican who is part of Bush's cabinet. To see him endorsing Obama shows that, I mean, it shows that there's not a, they're not just voting party lines, it's he's actually voting for what he thinks is right. And as a trusted member of the GOP, he's saying, well, gee, you know, this is what just happened. I see the errors in the last couple of years, even though he was part of handling it. And he says, this isn't how we can proceed. For example, Christopher Buckley, who's son of the thankfully late William F. Buckley, head of the National Review, quit that job because he says he's voting for Obama. And the National Review is an extremely conservative publication. So you have to look at who is doing that. And the endorsements matter because if you see enough people from the other side, quote unquote, saying, listen, this isn't the way this is going, this isn't the way the Republican Party should be going, that should tell you something about the dynamic. But further on, that should tell you something about the election itself and the candidates.
My name is Sam Meller, and I am a Democrat. I pose this question to the honorable members of the Republican Party. First of all, how can you stand here and talk about limited government when your candidate supports the $700 billion economic stimulus package and, in fact, went to Washington to support that? These seem two different concepts. And the second thing is, how can we expect John McCain to lead our country when the vote came to the House? He had come to Washington, D.C. to ensure that the vote succeeded in the House. When the vote actually came to the House, it was the Republican backbenchers who downed that bill. That more than 50% of the Democrats supported the bill, and less than 50% of the Republicans more than 50% of the Republicans opposed that bill. And I would also like to say that in your explanation, don't say that Chairwoman Pelosi's speech was the cause for that, because when one's voting for a bill, one considers the bill itself and not what one says in support or defense, support or opposition of that bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kuiper. Fortunately, I don't have any snide or condescending remark to my statement. But I guess that's what you would call a stunt, as opposed to what Mr. McCain did when he went and suspended his campaign, which you might call doing the job you were elected to do. But I'm going to talk about bipartisanship. McCain, if you want a bipartisan candidate, vote for McCain. The Democrats, if Obama's elected, it's not going to be a bipartisan party. We've already talked about how Democrats already control the House, already control the Senate. You're going to see the country move in a decidedly left direction, and I'm guessing a decidedly radical one if you go by Obama's statement in the debate. It's good for everyone to spread the wealth around. Well, I guess it is. I mean, just look at the Soviet Union. That turned out well. Additionally, look at what happened with Lieberman. When he crossed party lines to vote for Republicans, the Democrats tried to nominate somebody else to run for the Democratic Party to be a senator from Connecticut. And now he's an independent endorsing McCain. And finally, I'll respond to Mr. Tankle. who basically everything he said was just a downright lie. I'm not afraid to use the word. He said that recently at McCain rally, supporters were calling to lynch or kill Obama. Yeah, the Secret Service, who was there in numbers, actually investigated that, and they said there were no calls for that whatsoever at all. And additionally, McCain has gone to lengths to distance himself from such radicals. I don't think McCain's running a sleazy campaign. I don't think that it's bad leadership to, necessarily have the balls to attack your opponent.
May I have a 15-second response? I was just called a liar in public.
I'm actually going to allow that.
The reason I noted that both McCain and Palin have now apologized for people calling for the killing or lynching of Barack Obama at their rallies. I don't think they would apologize if it didn't happen. If you go into YouTube or watch any news station, you can watch video of the rally and hear the sound of people yelling out, "Kill him, lynch him." So unless my ears are wrong or every single media outlet in the country is dubbing audio in there, I don't think I'm lying. And I really don't appreciate that personal attack.
I'm going to go one more audience member that didn't have the chance because they don't have any chance to speak. Ladies in the back. Yes.
Yes, John McFadden. I've heard from the Republican side that we're apparently not interested in redistributing wealth so much as creating wealth. And I'd actually be very interested to know where that wealth's going to come from, exactly. I mean, well, money doesn't just pop up out of thin air. It's got to come from somewhere. I mean, we've got a lot of jobs going overseas, so I guess like we've got to start getting like some capital in there, right? Are we having like any policies for that in any way, or I mean, we're like saying that we're like keeping like the taxes the same for everyone. We're not going to raise these taxes, and we're just going to pay for all these programs that we're still going to keep under McCain's plan, not with any raised taxes. We're just not redistributing. We're creating wealth. Well, creating from what? I mean, is there any material to that, or just conjure up like that? I don't know. And also for the redistribution of wealth thing, with Soviet Russia, assuming that there was any wealth to redistribute in Soviet Russia. Europe. Anyone seen what the Europeans have been doing? Social democracy, carefully cooperating with one another, seeing where the wealth is going, not letting it get into a few people's pockets. Kind of like this, kind of unelectable in America. Maybe. No?
That was directly to Republicans.
Before we do that, young ladies, are we going to let the angry young men keep score here? Speak up. Yes, what's going on here?
One of you can respond, and then you'll the next. Let's speak with you guys. Yeah, okay.
I have a few things. Lee, to your question, or your comment, Palin did come out against the comments, and it's unacceptable. If that did actually happen, it is unacceptable. But it is also as unacceptable when I'm a member of Congressman Murtha's congressional district, and when he calls your family racist, that is as equally unacceptable. But as far as reaching across party lines, Sam's my roommate, so we'll talk about that for a while. As far as the defeat of the stimulus package, first of all, Obama supports the package as well, so each side supported the package and they recognized the need because there were problems that were existing. I think Andrew disagrees with me on that point. That's all right. But it was the Democrats and it was the Republicans' fault that that particular bill didn't pass. And unfortunately, people were relying on politics and not the issues when they defeated the bill the first time around. Now, I do want to bring it back to kind of the issues. We've touched on the war in Iraq a lot. What we haven't touched on is, one, the surge, and two, the imminent plan for withdrawal. First of all, John McCain supported the surge, ladies and gentlemen. The surge was successful. I happen to be friends with General Petraeus' son. I know how worn out he is because he's worked so hard, and thankfully he'll be out of Iraq next week. But his plan was right. John McCain supported the plan. Obama didn't. It's pretty simple. And now we're at a point where a withdrawal plan is imminent. We're signing a withdrawal plan for 2012 within the next 2 weeks. But the other side hasn't talked about that. They talk about how when Obama's elected, we're going to pull him right out. That's all right. So where are those troops going to go? Well, according to Barack Obama, they're going to Sudan, they're going to Pakistan, and we're going to reinforce our troops in Afghanistan. So where's the rest for the troops in the United States? Barack Obama has said that he will immediately send troops into Pakistan. He will immediately send troops to Sudan to deal with the genocide. While I agree that something needs to be done in Sudan, Barack Obama seems to fail to realize the necessities and all the strain that is already on the forces of the United States. I'm going to cede the floor to Mr. Schuman because he wanted to address the previous speaker's question.
I want to 30 seconds. Okay, I want to answer your question. It's a great question, but unfortunately, I think that money does come out of thin air these days. Our Federal Reserve Bank has the authority to basically print money out of thin air, and they don't actually print physical dollars, but they do write checks that come from nowhere. But money isn't exactly wealth. Real wealth comes from being able to purchase more goods at lower prices. And the way that you do that is by having people who don't consume 100% of their income and who can invest in things like, simplest example I can think of is cliche, but Henry Ford and the assembly line. Before, people couldn't afford cars. After that technological improvement was developed, a lot of people could afford them. And that's really what strikes at the heart of the thing I was talking about earlier, is saving money and then investing it in better labor productivity and technology. That's real wealth, not money.
Just a brief comment. Just from what I've been noticing, I think we're living in the Cold War age for my friends across the aisle here. In terms of socialism, in terms of keeping the surge up, that we can win this war with no end in sight. And it just doesn't seem to make sense. For example, Hill, you brought up the Soviet Union. You said a comment about time. You said a comment about something. You and I were students of Russian. We should know better than that. We should know what's going on over there and taking history. And I've been seeing some double talk here. You talk about no snide comments, yet in the same breath you come up with another snide comment, and then you call me Tank a liar. Whether he is a liar or not, well, that's what people can manufacture. I think you're kind of talking out of both sides of your mouth here. Again, you mentioned Ned Lamont and Joe Lieberman. We didn't mention Ned Lamont. Joe Lieberman is my senator. I didn't vote for him. I voted for Ned Lamont. Joe Lieberman lost in the Democratic primary. He lost. He formed his own party, the Connecticut for Lieberman Party, for which he won in the general election. There's a lawsuit, I believe, pending, but it wasn't resolved by election day. So, again, I'm not really sure your comment. I don't think you phrased it right. Basically, from what I've been seeing, we've been having some double talk here. We've got people who are talking about something they don't really understand. And I think it's time we stop living in the past. We stop living in the Cold War era. Socialism is coming and it's going to eat you. That's not what we need. We need to move on, move into the future in the 21st century.
Mr. Pepper, do you feel your honor's been compromised?
It's fine. I'll just give him the benefit of the doubt and just say it was a good place.
If you can stand up and recognize.
My name is Lauren Wetherell, and I'm a sociology major, and this is something that was bothering me earlier on the Republican side. Sorry, I couldn't see who was talking, but the idea that it could potentially be the poor's fault that they didn't save enough money, and that's why they're poor. I'd just like to point out that we have vast inequalities in our country, and I don't think it would help to help out people who are either hindered by their race, their religion, their gender, sexual orientation, so many discriminatory factors. We're not all white. We're not bots. Not everybody in this country. We don't have equal opportunities. That's a fact that America never wants to talk about. And the fact of redistributing, I think we should be a little bit more open to. Because obviously we have not created social programs in this country to let everybody get the American dream. And I just wanted to point that out.
WPS. I have a question for both sides, and that is the question of accountability. As people have said, you know, the candidates may not be able to do all that they are saying that they will be able to do in their campaigns. But I have a question about accountability for the associates of these candidates and, you know, perhaps the fallout. For example, on this side, Mr. Schuman refers to the wealthy and the corporations being able to invest their wealth and be able to bring up America's wealth. How can we hold them accountable to ensure that, for example, their CEO's paychecks won't rise another, say, $100,000? And on this side, how can we ensure that the government spending Obama wants to add to is actually going to be able to help Americans in the way that he wants? I have questions about accountability and how we can make sure that these plans that these candidates want to bring in motion will succeed, and if they don't, what we can do about it.